Thanks for staying with us here on RPR, Real Presence Live. It's been a great morning. I had some fantastic conversations. I'm Brad Gray.
And I'm Janine Bitson, and we have more fantastic conversations coming. We are just so blessed. We're going to be joined by Father Bob Schreiner from the Diocese of Crookston, and he just has an incredible story to share with our audience.
Yeah, and for those of you, I mean, most of our listeners are probably familiar with Father Bob, but certainly if you went to the Fargo Real Presence Radio banquet, you're absolutely familiar with Father Schreiner. He was the MC, and it was just hysterical. So, Father, thank you so much for being on with us again this morning.
You're most welcome, and I'm so very grateful to be able to tell the story of Sister Annella as I've come to know it.
Yeah, so, why don't you launch into it? Tell us a little bit about who Sister was.
Well, Sister Annella was a girl who was born in Moorhead, Minnesota, which is in my diocese, the Diocese of Crookston, to Hubert and Emma Zervas. Hubert, her dad, was a meat market guy, and, of course, Emma was full-time mom to Sister Annella and her siblings. And Sister Annella was born in Moorhead on Palm Sunday of 1900, and so it was April 7th then, but it was Palm Sunday, and was baptized Easter Sunday, that April of 1900. And eventually then, at the age of 15, went and joined the Benedictine Sisters down at St. Joseph, Minnesota, at the Benedictine Monastery there. And then served for about 4.5 or 5 years from, I think it's 1919 to 1924. She served as organist and music director at St. Mary's in Bismarck. And then her illness got extraordinarily difficult, and so came back to Moorhead to live with her parents, where her mother took care of her until her death, which was on the Vigil of the Assumption, April 14th at 3:15 a.m. She died in her parents' home on the Vigil of the Assumption, which was her prayer, because she had professed as a nun at the monastery on the 15th of August in 1915. And so as she was dying, she had prayed that she would die on the vigil, or she would die on the Assumption, which she died on the vigil, as was her wish, and to bring it all to conclusion. And so she was an extraordinary witness to Christ's faithfulness and suffering. And her first official biographer, from St. John's, called her the Apostle of Suffering.
Well, that sounds phenomenal. So what year was it that she passed away then?
1926. August 14th, 1926.
Young woman then.
Well, interestingly, so she died in 1926 at the age of 26. And though I haven't verified this myself, but I want to believe it, that I was told that if she is canonized, she would be the 26th Benedictine on the official registry of Canon of Saints.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
So she would be the 26th Benedictine. Yep.
That's awesome. I'd give her a certain sort of solidarity there, because I was born on the 10th day of the 10th month at 10 minutes after 10. So she's got the 26s, I've got the 10s.
Wow.
I'm telling you, when you run the numbers and dates and significance of all that, which is, of course, not at all surprising in church history and hagiography.
Right.
But it's astonishing when you look at Sister Annella's biography, how dates and feast days and numbers are all very telling.
And the Lord has always done that, right? I mean, you see that very much in the Scriptures.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in the Scriptures throughout both Old and New, and how they are united in those dates. And
nothing is wasted to God, for sure.
Yeah, there's no such thing as coincidence with God. That's absolutely right.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about Sister's devotion to the Lord. What makes her kind of unique beyond the aspect of the suffering that she endured? What do we glean from Sister's example?
So everyone who's given testimony who knew her, and of course we have two semi-official, if not official, biographies. One was written, or at least published, in 1931, the other one in 1957. And beyond that, we have access to a whole bunch of letters and testimonies and so on. That from her toddlership, Sister Annella was absolutely selfless and always interested in the other. I mean, just could not ever call attention to herself, even if she was, as a toddler, and not the kind of pain and suffering she was to later have. But if she had any want, any need, any suffering, she wouldn't call attention to it very often. And the parents had to learn very quickly to watch for her, because if she had a boo-boo or an owie, she wouldn't tell them. I mean, she was selfless, and she was always looking out for others. Her devotion from, again, toddler, the story is she was too, I suspect this is probably true, but I don't know child development if this is possible, but certainly when she was a toddler, the family crucifix in the living room was an absolute fascination to her from the moment she could crawl up on anything. And at the point in which she could talk and reach the crucifix, her mother kind of didn't scold her, because Emma was extraordinarily devout herself, her mother. But instructors like, honey, you need to be careful, because that's a very precious thing, the crucifix. And so Anna wanted to know what this was. And so her mom said, well, that's, the crucifix of Jesus, and he died for our sins so that we could be saved and go to heaven. And her response was, well, then, he's a dandy. And from the preparation of her first communion and through her time at St. Joseph's School in Moorhead, and then she would walk across the river over to Fargo to Sacred Heart Academy at the time, which, of course, is a connection for me, because my mother went to Sacred Heart Academy as well, not at the same time as Sister Annella, but shortly after. But she would walk across the river, go early enough. She could get a ride if somebody wanted. I mean, there were rides available to get her to Sacred Heart Academy. But she would go early enough to go to Mass at St. Mary's Cathedral, sit on the choir steps, have her breakfast, and then walk to school. And nobody knew this for years while she was doing this. And the rector of the cathedral, once he learned it, said, I would have been happy to give her a hot breakfast. And she said to her mother, I'm glad he never knew, so I could offer that sacrifice.
Wow. Oh, that is extraordinary. I mean, we've got a 3-year-old, and she's just wonderful. But this is a little outside of her wheelhouse.
No, it's extraordinary. No, Sister Annella was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Well, and that's part of that process of sainthood, to show that holiness and how they live their life, it's just really incredible. So how has Sister Annella continued to influence the lives of Catholics in our area?
Well, those that know about her in our area, of course, are a scattered group, and I appreciate the opportunity for your time in the airwaves to continue to spread her message, and I'm certainly doing what I can to do so. But it's a loosely associated group. I know there are lots of other folks out there that I haven't met. I mean, there's somebody from St. Cloud who's taken her words and put them to song, and so he's on YouTube, and so I know of people just very scattered, and I yearn for the day in which we can probably be called together and move forward with all of this. But it's important, I think, in large part because she is the apostle of suffering, and not only that, but she's an apostle of suffering no matter what degree. And of course, her suffering, when you read it, it is. I mean, I dare anyone in our listenership, and I know that there are lots of people suffering, and I know that their suffering can be excruciating and painful. But second to our Lord, what Sister Annella went through just physically, I can't imagine. I mean, and yes, I mean, yes, they're out there, but it's extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. And I wish that people would read it for themselves, because for me to recount it over the radio could threaten people's breakfasts, frankly, because it is so awful, her physical. But additionally, and I think those of us that are part of the revolution of faith, from John Paul and Benedictine Francis on, to bring faith back to the public square, we need to know how the devil works.
Yes.
And Sister Annella fought the devil at the end of her life. The Lord allowed her to be in confrontation with him, and for her to hold her faith in the midst of both physical suffering and spiritual warfare to a degree that few of us ever encounter. She absolutely is an educator, a witness, and an apostle that all of us need to learn from.
So on that point, Father, not to be a sensationalist, but to, like, when you say that she fought the devil, what would you share some about, like, what we can learn from that? What did she do? What did she encounter? How did she respond? Because that's something that every one of us we have an obligation to fight the devil in our own particular ways. What can we learn from Sister in that respect?
Well, absolute resignation to the will of God and trust that He was always in her hands. I mean, one of the extraordinary things when you read this twofold suffering, both her physical and spiritual embattlement, she never ceased to repeat and pray, Lord, give me more suffering, but only with your help can I endure it. And so even when she was, screaming in pain, I mean, Take It to Eternity documents, as well as some other sources, that her physical suffering and torments were so excruciating that people in the block, within a block and a half or 2 blocks of their home, would hear her screaming out in pain. And yet, out of that, she would still say, Lord, give me more suffering, but only with your help can I endure it. And so she never lost hope. She never lost faith. And she certainly maintained her love, because when her dad would rush into the room, or her mother would rush into the room, or one of her 2 sisters who were Benedictine nuns, or any of the other sisters who would rush into the room to try to provide her aid, Sister Annella would look to them and say, don't worry about me. How are you doing? I mean,
wow.
Unbelievable. Just absolute surrender into the arms of God in every given moment of anguish and torment. It was unbelievable. Well, no, forgive me. Utterly believable and utterly inspirational.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And what an incredible lesson as we continue to talk about Sister Annella on the other side of the break. We can really put ourselves into this Holy Week and tie her suffering to the suffering of our Lord Jesus and all of us who go through our personal sufferings. So we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with Father Bob Schreiner from the Diocese of Crookston to talk more about this faith-filled, wonderful, holy saint that is in our church. We'll be right back on Real Presence Radio.
Live, engaging, and local. This is Real Presence Live, where we bring you positive and uplifting stories and share the great things happening in our local area on the Real Presence Radio Network.
Hello, this is Mike Kidrowski, the Director of Advancement for Real Presence Radio with today's Plan Giving Minute. Philanthropy is an expression of your generosity with the understanding that your gift to the church will make a difference. There are many ways in which you can make a gift to further God's work. Most of us are familiar with cash gifts we give regularly to Real Presence Radio. However, another way of contributing is through plan giving, which may allow you to give more than you've ever dreamed possible. The goal of plan giving is to help you plan your estate and charitable giving in a way that benefits you, your family, and our mission. There are several ways you can make these plan gifts and enjoy tax and income benefits. For more information, please visit our plan giving website at rprlegacy.org or call me at 701-290-4503. Let's get started.
SJ Machine, proudly named after and dedicated to St. Joseph, provides machining and induction heat treating to a variety of industries. Just as St. Joseph worked diligently to meet his family's needs, SJ Machine strives to understand and meet our customers' production needs. Prototype to production, working together towards success. SJ Machine can be reached at 701-347-0155 and are a proud supporter of the Real Presence Radio Network.
The Mustard Seed Catholic Store is South Dakota's place to purchase Catholic books, gifts, and decor. With locations in Rapid City and Sioux Falls, we are here to provide you with gifts for the Catholic occasions in your life. From baptism to First Communion, confirmation to weddings, and ordinations, we pride ourselves in having local artists share their creative talents, making rosaries, crucifixes, artwork, coffee, and books. We are located in Rapid City on Main Street, in the new Diocesan Building, or in Sioux Falls on Grange Avenue across from Costco.
This is Real Presence Live on the RPR Network. bringing you stories of faith and hope through local hosts and guests from across the upper Midwest. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back to Real Presence Live. My name is Janine Bitson.
And I'm Brad Gray.
And we're having a wonderful conversation with Father Bob Schreiner from the Diocese of Crookston. We're talking about a very holy woman who was born right here in Moorhead in the Diocese of Crookston, in the Fargo-Moorhead area, and her process of sainthood. And there are many articles. I actually, found an article from the St. Cloud Diocese that talks about her life and her suffering that she went through. And Father Bob is helping us to grow deeper and learn more about her. But even think about just a student at St. Joseph School in Moorhead. How special is that? We're all saints in the making, but we need recognized saints to help us lead holy lives, right, Father Bob?
Absolutely, to be able to go to with the certainty of the Church's own faith and appeal to them, absolutely.
And I think there's something powerful about having this opportunity right now here in Holy Week to talk about her witness, because we're entering, we had Passion Sunday, also called Palm Sunday yesterday, where we had the first account of the Passion of the Lord from St. Luke's Gospel. Then we'll have St. John's account on Good Friday. But this is a week that really focuses on the depths of love to which God went, so that we can be with him. And you kind of see that echoed in many ways in the life of Sister Annella, right?
In fact, can I add to that just a little bit? Like, even as we're talking about Sister Annella today, it's the feast of St. Gemma Gogani. And,
wow.
And think about what she said.
Good connection.
She said, if you really want to love Jesus, learn to suffer, because suffering teaches you to love. Wow, that's just Jesus,
that's a great
Jesus,
connection.
Jesus.
Another one.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So Father, I guess a couple questions. So how did you first learn about Sister Annella, and what would you point to in terms of right now we're entering into this holiest of weeks, and how we can use her witness as as spiritual, just a dynamism of entering into the sacrifice of Christ this week?
Well, so my connection, God will always take more than one swing at you if you're stupid the first time, and I was stupid the first time. So when I was in the diocesan office, heading up the Office of New Evangelization, I had a woman on my staff by the name of Amanda Zervas. Sound familiar? Spelled differently. But somebody anonymously had dropped off at the reception desk a little trifold, poorly mimeographed little biography of Sister Annella Zervas and a perk card, and, said, get this to Father Bob and his staff. So it was brought to me, I read it, and it's like, have never heard of her. Oh, she was in Moorhead. Oh, okay. And then because of the name Zervas, though spelled differently, I handed it off to Amanda saying, take a look into this and see what, it is our office should do about this, if anything, and whatever. And so we did look into it, and it was interesting, but we processed it from the vantage point of what can our office do, and at that point, and whatever, nothing. So that was really it. And then a couple of years ago, through what a friend of mine calls God's dot to dot, somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, said there are people gathering at the grotto at the shrine, at the grotto of Our Lady of Lourdes, at the monastery at St. Joseph, St. Benedict's Monastery, praying for Sister Annella's cause, and you need to go. It's like, well, why do I need to go? Well, you just need to go. It's like, well, okay. So I arranged to go, and so then I met a group of people, and on that, it was the anniversary of her death. I think it was actually Sunday, August 14th. A couple of years ago, we were just coming out of the pandemic, so I think it was August 14th, 2020. And so then I got in contact with folks that are very deeply involved with Sister Annella's cause, and then and there are a lot of priests who know the story, who are supportive of the story, but I'm the one who's, it's like, okay, I'm happy to be associated with it, and no problem. And so we started praying up here. I've got a little group that prays the anniversary of every year, well, not every year, but from May through October, we get together for Our Lady of Fatima and remind ourselves of the story of Fatima and so on. And so last year we added then the cause of Sister Annella and started telling her story. And so locally, that's growing. It already existed. I'm not the founder of a devotion to Sister Annella up here at all. I come to it lately because I was stupid the first time and somehow it took the second time. So, and I'm happy to be, I mean, whatever I can do, I've told our new bishop, it's like, this is a passion of mine. And, with your support, I'll continue to do what I can do. And so happy to be on the airwaves today to do what I can. And what's interesting to me also, having read some more documents just last week, in fact, that are not in the public domain, but saints were interested in Sister's story. So, for example, I read that Hubert, her Sister Annella's father, desperate in 1924 or 24, I think it was 24, wrote to then Brother Andre Bisset, who was manning the front door of the St. Joseph Oratory in Montreal, and said, I would like to bring my daughter to you and to the oratory to pray for St. Joseph's intercession if you think that's what I should do. And Brother Andre writes back and says, no, your daughter is anointed, not the word anointed, what's the word I'm trying to remember? Your daughter is appointed, I think is the word, as I read, is appointed for suffering for the good of the church.
Wow.
And of course, Brother Andre Bisset becomes Saint Andre Bisset, the great promoter of the devotion to St. Joseph, the home parish of Sister Annella. So we have that saintly connection. And then the author, James Krychek of Ticket for Eternity, the more expansive of the biographies, writes to Sister Annella's blood sister, who is a Benedictine sister in the same convent she was, Sister de Pazzi, writes to her in the early 50s, I think, and says, Dorothy Day was on campus today, and I gave her the story of Sister Annella, and she came back to me saying, clearly this is a saint of the church. Tell me more. And now, of course, Dorothy Day is a fellow servant of God. Her cause for canonization is underway, through New York. And so we have these saintly connections. Saint Andre Bisset, servant of God, Dorothy Day, all learning of her story. And, in time, Brother Andre, while she was still living, Dorothy Day after she's dead, of course, but even the saintly ones, and we appeal here specifically to St. Andre, saw her destiny for the church.
Wow.
And so I think we need to take that up and give it back to the church for recognition as we can. And right now it's about prayer, just to pray for her intercession, for us to be able to document miracles, which are going on. As recently as in the last 5 years, I'm aware of 3 medically documented miracles through her intercession and her intercession alone. So it's happening, and those of us that are interested are compiling everything we can to be able to muster up this process.
It is just so important. There just needs to be that grassroots. That's a big way that it happens, that God has it happen. And that's how these holy lives lead more people to Christ, too, is even in these processes of beatification, of canonization, is just a real special thing. It can be frustrating. I mean, we're kind of frustrated with Blessed Columba Marmion not being canonized yet, but I remind my father-in-law it's in God's time. He has the perfect timing. And I know there's many miracles, just like Sister Annella has so many miracles surrounding. I'm reading the St. Cloud Times article as well. I mean, it's just really powerful that this is...
There were, from the moment of her death, after she was buried, the gravesite has been cited. We're told of hundreds of miracles and subsequently. And like I said, those are still going on. I mean, the church requires miracles documented and provable that cannot be explained otherwise. We have those in spades. I mean, we've got those in spades. But as you point out, so somebody early on, back in the 30s, commented to the first biographer, it's like, be patient. The process for the cause of saints is so tedious that sometimes it causes its own saints impatience.
Right.
And that's for a purpose. I mean, that's
Sure.
not to be cynical, but it is to say it is a laborious and an intensive and necessarily labyrinthine sort of process, so that the church can have confidence that these names we call upon, in fact, are in the beatific vision and can intercede for us. No question about it.
Right, and it's an incredible process. It's an important process, but it doesn't. It should not prevent us from praying for their
Not at all.
intercession, because it's no different than asking a friend to pray for us here on earth. These are our special friends in heaven.
Yeah.
And these stories, I mean, and I look at, and she touched so many around the world. I mean, even the story of the gentleman in one of the iron crib babies in Romania, how he talks about how she played a role in his first 3 years of life. I mean, this is like touching around the world, people.
Yeah, her story has been told in dozens of languages across the world, and miracles reported from all of those languages, I suspect.
Father, this is, I mean, I've never heard of her before. I've been totally struck this morning during our conversation. We only have about 30 seconds left, but what do you encourage people to do that have been similarly moved?
Well, pray her intercession with confidence, not because she's a saint, but because we want heaven to be able to show us that she's a saint.
Right.
And so just ask for her intercession humbly and place it at the feet of our Blessed Mother, and always end it with a Hail Mary, so that we recognize the authority of heaven over the story of Sister Annella and her intercession.